All right, buckle up, because today we are diving into one of your most requested topics, time travel. But not just the Back to the Future kind of time travel, though I do love a good DeLorean. We're talking about the kind of time travel that makes you question if you accidentally stumbled into the Matrix.
Right, right. I always say if thinking about time travel doesn't make your brain hurt a little bit, you're not thinking about it hard enough.
Exactly. And trust me, this deep dive is going to require some serious brain power. We're tackling your request on time travel and computation, specifically using this fascinating lecture by theoretical computer scientist Scott Aronson. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah. Aronson's brilliant. He's got this knack for taking the most mind-bending concepts and making them, well, if not exactly easy to understand, then at least incredibly fun to think about.
I totally agree. And what I love about his approach to time travel is he doesn't get bogged down in the how so much as the what if.
Hmm.
Like, he's less concerned with actually building a time machine,
Yeah.
and way more interested in what we could do with one if we had it. Specifically, what kind of crazy computations we could pull off.
Now we're talking. That's where things get really interesting. Because when you bring computation into the picture, you inevitably bump into the limits of what's physically possible, even with time travel.
Okay, so before we get to the really crazy stuff, like using time travel to solve problems that would take normal computers longer than the universe has existed.
Those are my favorite kind of problems.
Mine too. But before we get there, let's start with something a little simpler. Traveling to the future. It's funny, when we think about time travel, we often jump straight to the past. But traveling to the future, that's not as far-fetched as it might seem, right?
Yeah. In theory, there are a few ways we could potentially swing that.
Let's hear it.
Well, there's the classic cryogenics route, basically. Freeze yourself and wake up in the future.
Like a human popsicle.
Exactly. Though there's no guarantee you'd actually survive the thawing process or that the future would be all that welcoming to a bunch of defrosted humans from the past.
Fair point.
What else? Then there's the good old-fashioned near-light-speed spaceship. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, the faster you travel through space, the slower time passes for you relative to someone standing still.
So you could hop on a spaceship, zip around the galaxy at close to the speed of light for a while, and when you come back, everyone on Earth would have aged decades, maybe even centuries, while you've only experienced a few years.
You've got it. Of course, building a spaceship that can travel that fast is a tad bit of an engineering challenge.
And let's not forget the whole fuel requirement for a near light speed joyride. I'm guessing it's not exactly a quick trip to the gas station.
Let's just say we'd need to figure out some serious energy solutions. We're talking about harnessing power on a scale that makes fusion look like a child's toy. And even then, there's the whole issue of returning to a world where everyone you know is long gone. Bittersweet victory, don't you think?
Right, like winning a race, but everyone you know is already dead. Okay, so maybe future travel is out. But what about traveling to the past? That's where those closed time-like curves, those CTCs we talked about earlier, come into play. Now, those are the real brain benders. So we've got these CTCs, these theoretical tunnels to the past. But could they actually exist? Like, is that something that could even happen in our universe?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, the answer is we just don't know.
Oh, come on, there's got to be something.
Well, here's the thing. General relativity, Einstein's theory of gravity, it doesn't actually rule out the possibility of CTCs.
Okay, so they're not like totally forbidden by the laws of physics as we know them.
Exactly. But here's the catch. We've never, ever observed a CTC. Not even a hint of one. It's like they're these mythical creatures that some physicists spend their entire lives searching for, but no one's ever snapped a photo.
So it's possible, but highly improbable.
Maybe. And then there's the whole issue of quantum mechanics.
Oh boy, here we go. Quantum physics always seems to complicate things.
You're telling me? You see, trying to reconcile CTCs with quantum mechanics is like mixing, like mixing oil and water. They just don't seem to play nicely together.
So where does that leave us?
Well, it means we need a better understanding of how gravity works at the quantum level. We need a theory of quantum gravity.
Which is kind of a big deal, right? I mean, physicists have been trying to unify those two for decades.
It's one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in physics. And what's so fascinating is that understanding quantum gravity might be the key to figuring out whether time travel is even possible.
Whoa. So you're saying we might have to solve one of the biggest puzzles in the universe just to figure out if we can hop in a time machine?
It kind of seems that way.
But while they're working on that, I guess we can explore the computational side of
Yeah.
things. That's where Scott Aronson comes in.
Exactly. See, instead of getting stuck on whether or not CTCs exist, Aronson takes this brilliant approach and asks, what if we could compute with them?
I love that. It's like, okay, universe, you're not giving us any straight answers.
Well,
Fine. But let's just assume for a moment that we could build a time machine. What could we do with it, computationally speaking?
exactly. And you know what? The possibilities are mind-blowing.
So tell me more about this computational time travel. Like, how would you even go about computing with a time loop?
All right, so imagine this. You have a computer program, and this program is stuck inside a CTC. It takes some input, processes it, spits out an output, but because it's in a time loop, the output then becomes the new input, and the cycle continues forever.
Whoa, it's like a computational echo chamber.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. We have to think about those pesky paradoxes. Like the classic grandfather paradox.
Oh yeah, if you go back in time and accidentally prevent your grandparents from eating, then you're never born. Which means you couldn't have gone back in time in the first place. That one always makes my head spin.
Exactly. It creates this logical inconsistency, a paradox that seems impossible to resolve. But here's the thing. We're dealing with computation, and computation loves finding solutions, even in the most mind-boggling scenarios.
So, how do we get around the paradox?
Well, David Deutsch, another brilliant mind in the realm of quantum computation, he came up with this elegant solution that involves probability.
Okay, I love where this is going. Tell me more.
So instead of thinking about the computer program and the CTC as settling on one definitive answer, Deutsch proposed that the system would exist in a state of probabilities.
Probability. So, like, instead of saying this is the answer, we're saying there's a certain chance of this being the answer and another chance of it being something else.
You got it. It's like the CTC forces the system to find a balance, a way to accommodate all the possible outcomes within the time loop without creating those nasty paradoxes.
Okay, I'm following so far, but how does this actually help us compute anything?
Here's the kicker. Remember those NP-complete problems? The ones that would take even a supercomputer billions of years to solve.
Oh yeah, those are the really juicy ones.
Well, Aronson showed that with CTCs, we might be able to crack those wide open. And not just NP-complete problems, but potentially any problem in p-space.
P-space. That's like a whole other level of computational complexity, right?
Right. It's a complexity class so vast it makes NP look like a grain of sand on a cosmic beach. And with CDCs, we might be able to tackle those problems with, dare I say, ease.
Okay, so time travel might just be the ultimate cheat code for solving these ridiculously hard problems. But hold on a second, because now I'm wondering, what happens when we bring quantum computers into the mix? We've talked about how mind-blowingly powerful they are, how they can tackle problems in ways that classical computers just can't even fathom.
Right. Quantum computers and their qubits, it's a whole new ballgame.
Exactly. So we've got these CTCs, these potential shortcuts through time, and we've got quantum computers, these masters of quantum weirdness. What happens when we combine those two? Does the universe explode?
Well, it's not quite an explosion, but it definitely creates some serious fireworks in the world of theoretical computer science.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So we're talking about quantum computers operating inside these time loops. Imagine qubits, those quantum bits of information whizzing around a CTC. They're processing information, getting entangled, but their whole existence is also subject to the loop.
Whoa, it's like their past, present, and future are all tangled up together. It's like a quantum time pretzel.
That's a great way to put it. And this is where we enter the realm of BQPCTC.
BQPCTTC.
It stands for Bounded Error Quantum Polynomial Time with Closed Timelike Curves. Catchy, right?
Rolls right off the tongue. But what does it actually mean?
Basically, it's the class of problems that a quantum computer could solve if it had access to a CTC. And when Aronson first started talking about this, even he presented it as an open question. Nobody knew how powerful BQPCTC really was.
Well, it was a total mystery. Did anyone ever figure it out?
They did. Aronson, along with another brilliant computer scientist, John Watrous, they actually managed to prove something remarkable.
Okay, drumroll please. What did they find?
They proved that BQPCTC is equivalent to p-space.
Wait, seriously? So all that quantum weirdness, all that potential for mind-bending computation, and we ended right back at p-space. You're telling me that quantum computers don't gain any extra power from time travel?
It seems counterintuitive, right? It's like quantum computers hit this cosmic speed limit when they step into the ring with time travel.
Yeah, so even with all their quantum tricks, they're still bound by the limits of p-space.
Exactly. It's like the very fabric of time with all its paradoxes and restrictions. It imposes this fundamental computational limit. Even quantum mechanics, as bizarre and powerful as it is, has to play by time's rules.
Well, that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping for some even crazier possibilities. But I gotta ask, why? Why is BQPCTC stuck at PS space? What's going on behind the scenes of reality that creates this unexpected ceiling?
Well, to understand that, we need to dig into a bit of the math, and don't worry, I'll try to keep it light on the equations. Essentially, when we're talking about quantum computation with CTCs,
Yeah.
we're dealing with matrices.
Matrices.
Yeah.
Those grids of numbers that haunted my high school math
The
classes.
very same. You see, in quantum mechanics, we use matrices to represent the operations that we can perform on qubits. So when we're trying to describe what a quantum computer does inside a CTC, we're essentially looking for a specific matrix, one that remains the same even after it goes for a spin in the time loop.
So it's like finding a needle in a haystack of matrices. But this needle has the special property of being immune to time travel shenanigans.
Precisely. And it turns out that finding this special matrix, this fixed point of the time loop, it's a problem that can be solved in PS space.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection now. So even though the quantum computation itself might be happening within the CTC, the process of finding the right matrix to describe it, that process is still bound by the limits of PS space.
You got it. It's like the universe is saying, sure, you can do all sorts of quantum weirdness inside a time loop, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be limited by the computational power of PS space.
So we're back to PS space. It's like the ultimate computational speed limit, even for time-traveling quantum computers.
It seems that way. But hey, PS space is still a pretty incredible place to be. We're talking about solving problems that would make even the most powerful supercomputers cry.
True, true. Well, this deep dive has definitely taken us on a wild ride. We've journeyed through mind-bending concepts, grappled with paradoxes, and explored the frontiers of computation. If your brain feels a little fried right now, I wouldn't blame you. But that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? We get to peek behind the curtain of reality, explore the universe's most baffling mysteries, and push the limits of human understanding. So keep those brains buzzing, folks, and until next time, happy time traveling.